I'm going to talk to you about the steps along our path, and I'll just go over them briefly and then talk in more detail. We're going to start with, obviously, welcome. And Karen and Scott, when they first came, kind of had this idea. And by the way, they were here a year before they decided that they needed a professional membership director to come on board. So the position has been out there for 6 years. Their view is that of a sort of a master connector. And what they were looking for in a membership director was absolutely for that person to become the go-to person. And that means a high level of visibility in the congregation. The person who does all the welcoming at the beginning of the services, we have 3 services, the person who does all the announcing, the person who invites people to all the membership classes, up in front of the congregation every single Sunday. In the lobby to meet people before and after the service every single Sunday, and we also have a Saturday service. So the key, and also conducting the orientation, which is our first step. So they know, newcomers and visitors, who it is that they need to seek out, who it is they need to talk to. And I know that probably there are some of you who have a team, perhaps, who follow up with newcomers, call them up and say, welcome to the church and all this. I do all of that. The only person that they're going to hear from is me. And we like that kind of consistency. We think it's important for newcomers to have a consistent presence and a consistent email address or phone number that they can connect with. So it's always go to Mary, go to Mary. So they know that. And we feel that's an advantage in our process. So we start with welcome. We go to an orientation. I'll explain a little bit about that later. We call it UU 101. And from there, we go to a class called Starting Point, and I'll explain a little bit more about that when we get to it. From there, and let me tell you that Starting Point was kind of our aha as we looked at our steps in the context of our mission. Starting Point is an 8-hour class that introduces people to our first Unitarian theology of healing disconnection by listening, opening, and serving. And one of the things that we discovered, because we didn't have that until about 3 years ago, one of the things that we discovered was, when we mapped it all out, we have an orientation. Okay, so people are welcome. They know a little bit about us. They've been able to tell their story a little bit. They're on this side of the lake. And then over on the other side of the lake is a whole bunch of people who signed the book, and they're committed, and they're engaged, but there's no boat. There was no way for our folks to get from one shore to another. So Starting Point kind of represents our bridge or our boat for them to get from one side to the other. So that was kind of our aha when we were able to lay out the sequential steps in the context of our mission. From Starting Point, they can go to one or both of 2 different ways of getting more involved in the church. They can go to journey groups, explain that later, and or they can go to our membership class and end up signing the membership book. So maybe I'll take each of these in sequence. All right. Our newcomer orientation is UU 101. And it's short, it's frequent, and it's low commitment. One of the things that we offer it 5 times a month after services. It's about 45 minutes long. And why do I say low commitment? Well, because I know that there are some programs, the very first thing that people are able to do in a church is like a 6-hour new UU class. And to our way of thinking, it's way too much to ask somebody who has just come to the church 1 time or 2 times. So the low commitment, they can drop in, they don't have to pre-register, just come. And in that class, we introduce the concept of listen, open, serve. We talk about this is what you will become if you continue the journey with us. And we get their stories. I think this is a really important way to engage folks. We ask them, what's your religious background and how did you happen to come to us? Give them a tour of the church. It's very once over lightly in terms of theology of Unitarian Universalism. It's a lot more about our church. They will get more of that in subsequent classes. So the other important thing about UU 101 is that we invite them then to the next step. And by the way, let me just go back, not in terms of slides, but let me just go back. After people visit, it's very important not just to send them a note or an email or call them and say, hey, it's great to have you. You know, it's wonderful, and if you have any questions, let me know. No, that doesn't do it. What are you specifically inviting them to do? So that's basically what we do. When I follow up with people right after they visited, I say, and by the way, on June 25th, we're having a newcomer orientation. I hope you can join us. This is what time it is. This is where the childcare is. Drop in. No need to sign up to show up. So they have a specific invitation, a place to come, and a time to come. So again, I think that's important in the more general invitation. You know, give me a call if you have any questions. Well, what newcomer is going to do that? I don't know. Maybe some would. Okay. The next thing that we invite people to is our 8-hour course, Starting Point, Introduction to the UU Journey. It's 4 consecutive evenings, or sometimes we do it in 2 4-hour blocks on a Saturday. Sometimes we do it on a Sunday. We try to vary the time so it's convenient for folks. We offer it anywhere from 3 to 4 times a year, so hopefully it's convenient for folks coming in and completing the UU 101 class. Here's what's important. These are minister-led. Our ministers are committing to newcomers at the beginning of their journey. Early contact with ministers is really key in newcomers wanting to stay and feeling identified with the church. So much more than shaking the minister's hand at the end and saying, wow, that was a great sermon, but really getting to know them in a more intimate setting. So we think this is the power of the Starting Point class. The 4 sessions pretty much concentrate on the listen, open, serve, the 3 pieces of our mission. The first one, we really go into their own journey, their spiritual journey. We have some activities and exercises, and we ask them what do they want to take with them from their past religious background, if any, and what do they struggle with and would like to leave behind. The second piece, we ask them to open to life's gifts, and this is where we're giving them more information and knowledge, if you will. And we look at life's gifts as connection, as relationships, as your experiences, as grace, as knowledge, as all of those things that come to you as you pursue your path in our church of becoming. So when we talk about opening to life's gifts, we talk a lot about our church's journey. We have a 180-year history in Rochester. We talk a lot about our prophetic voices from our church and emphasize some of the prophetic voices from our Unitarian Universalist tradition as well. The third piece is serving needs greater than your own. And we talk about our social justice traditions. And again, we are emphasizing reading from our own ministers' sermons, both current ministers and past ministers. We're really trying to connect people to our church and to really understand what our theology is and how it fits into the broader themes of Unitarian Universalism. And finally, in session 4, what we want people to do is continue meeting in what we call a journey group. And how many of you have covenant groups or are familiar with those? Okay, great. Journey groups can be covenant groups, but they can be other kind of groups. They can be Buddhist meditation groups. They can be writing groups. They can be spiritual reading groups or Bible study groups. There are a number of groups that fall under the category of journey groups, but we ask them to continue the journey through joining one of these groups. And the key thing, and again, this is that aha experience. Always before, we had to kind of squeeze our newcomers into ongoing journey groups. We probably have about 24 running. But you know what some of the difficulties with that is, right? I mean, somebody brand new coming in, and here's these people who've been meeting for a year or 3 years or whatever. So there's some awkwardness is there, both for the newcomer and for the people who have bonded in a group. So here was what we thought was a good solution. We create a new group each time we have a starting point class. So each time people go through these 8 weeks, those who wish to then become part of an ongoing journey group with a cohort that they already know. And again, this is a cornerstone of our membership path. I know I've heard a lot about mentoring systems with an older person and a newer person. There's actually been some studies shown that people relate more to people who are at their same stage. And so getting to know people who are also new and are also at the same stage in the process is really an important piece of bonding. So we kind of want to take advantage of that. And so journey groups is the next step.